to give us a little bit of a buffer between waxing poetic about Charlie Chaplin and more Charlie Chaplin, would you like to have our first feature presentation be Cabiria?
Sure. Oh, Cabiria. That makes more sense than how I was saying it in my head.
How were you saying it?
Cabiria.
Cabiria. I don't know. We'll have to ask an Italian.
Cabiria sounds more like an Italian name, which is what it is.
Yes.
Cabiria sounds like a far-off island where mysteries
The
happen.
Isle of Cabiria, where they do sacrifices to Moloch.
Oh! This movie is pretty wild.
Yeah.
This is sort of the ultimate example of the pre-war Italian epic.
Yes.
This is the height of it. It peaked with this movie.
And it's definitely more interesting than the previous ones.
Yeah, this is the longest one, but also easily the best one.
Yeah. This is by Giovanni Pastrone, by the way, who I'm not going to call Giovanni Pastrami anymore. For Italo film.
He previously co-directed what was my favorite Italian epic up to this point, The Fall of Troy, in 1911.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw that and I was like, oh, okay, this one might be good.
Yeah.
And
it was. I mean, just from a technical standpoint, like this, one of the things that's most notable about Cabiria is that it has a lot of moving cameras. Like, the camera kind of drifts around scenes, sometimes aimlessly, sometimes with a purpose of following the action from one place to another. But honestly, even when the drifting camera isn't really doing anything, it makes the scenes feel so much more alive.
And it's not even, I feel like drifting gives kind of the wrong impression. It's more like slow, like side to side, or like moving in towards.
Yeah, pushing in, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like these kind of subtle camera movements that are so commonplace now as just sort of like, you're covering a scene, just like, have, camera like do a little move.
Yeah.
And for 1914, it feels super groundbreaking.
Yeah. I mean, everything is so locked off until this point. And we've seen cameras move as much as 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But it almost feels like Pastrone is integrating a moving camera into his style, an already extant technique, and making it part of his style in the way that D.W. Griffith took an already extant technique of cross-cutting and made it part of his signature style.
Yeah, that actually I think is a pretty spot-on comparison. I know we have not yet watched any of D.W. Griffith's like big epics, but supposedly a lot of the things that he later got credit for inventing in those are actually just things from Cabiria.
I've seen in a lot of places that Griffith took a lot of inspiration from this movie.
Yeah. Which I guess we'll see.
Another big name that's attached to this is that some of the effects were done by Segundo de Chamon.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
He was involved
awesome.
on the effects of this movie, which is pretty great. Love to see Chamon out there.
Yeah. I mean the I guess the very broad strokes plot of this film is it follows a girl named Cabiria who lives in Rome, who is thought she's the daughter of some
kind of
nobles, and then Mount Etna erupts and destroys the place she's living in. And that's like the first scene almost. It's like, we're like introduced to like a couple of the characters and they're like having a nice day, and then boom, volcano eruption.
Yeah, very bombastic and sort of well done, like miniature volcano that they superimpose. They have a very detailed miniature volcano that's taking up a lot of space, and then they superimpose a bunch of people very small in the foreground and put them in the scene, which is really, really good.
Yeah, they do that technique a lot in this, where they'll have a miniature shot being most of the screen, and then usually in the foreground they'll have some live action footage superposed over it
Yeah,
on a set or on location.
to
But
give it
even that live
scale.
action footage is so big that it then gives so much. It gives that sense of scale to the miniatures in the background.
Yeah,
It works really well.
yeah,
Um, and so then, uh, she is saved from the eruption by her nurse, I guess, her caretaker.
yeah.
Um, but then they are immediately kidnapped by pirates and taken to the nation. Nation?
This is getting into like a lot of Western Civ stuff that I really am not super
Yeah,
aware of.
same.
Um, but yeah, something
They go to Carthage,
Carthage. Yeah, Carthage
and
and Rome, I suppose.
yeah, and so there's a lot of this movie kind of functions as like a war movie between the uh, I forget what war it is. Some with a P. It's not the penal
Punic?
wars.
It's
Punic wars, I think,
yeah.
something like that.
I really don't
Um,
know.
look, we're a film history podcast, not a history podcast. All right, you want
Yeah,
your real old timey history. You have to go somewhere else.
yeah. Take it to the news segment of the year 400,
Yeah.
negative 400, even. I don't know.
And so a lot of the rest of the movie follows these two Roman spies who are sent to Carthage, not really to get her back specifically, but that is and ends up kind of being their main goal. And the movie takes place over, I don't know, 10 plus years.
Something like that.
It
Yeah.
really tells a very sprawling
When
yarn.
at the beginning, Cabiria's a little girl, and then toward the end of the movie, she's like an adult.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it does not skimp on the action. It's pretty action packed.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
There are some just massive sets and set pieces in this.
Yeah.
I mean, the most famous and most notable of which being the Moloch sacrifice
Yeah.
scene.
I guess we should zoom in on that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about this whole episode just on that scene. I think it's so wild and cool.
So the Moloch sequence is after Cabiria has been captured, there are these kind of occultist occultist Italian people who are trying to sacrifice like something like 100 children to the god Moloch. And there's a very big an enormously practically built temple that has this kind of scary creature outside, and
Yeah, it's like the temple steps are going up into its mouth.
yeah, uh, and you see like hundreds of people kind of pouring in the gate for this enormous human sacrifice event, and and then you see the inside, and there's like another statue, and there's fire and brimstone,
Was
and
there brimstone?
I don't know.
There was
It's
definitely
just
fire.
there's fire.
Yeah.
Where what they say, where there's fire, there's brimstone, right? um, and then they have this big statue that the chest opens up on the statue, and there's like a fire inside of the statue, and so they're just taking children and throwing them inside of this chest cavity of Moloch.
Right. Which there couldn't have been real fire inside that statue, huh?
I
Because they are
guess
throwing
not.
real children into it.
It's real children, real statue, fake fire.
I hope so.
What I was trying to think of the mechanism there too. Like what I wonder is like maybe it was like because the way that it closes, they kind of slide in, and maybe they just like slide straight down, and then the fire
There's
is
just
behind them like at a
maybe.
distance. But yeah. Hopefully, no children were harmed in the making of this film. No
Yeah.
children were human sacrificed in the making of this film.
And And so yeah, there's this whole thing where Cabiria is taken from the this group of children and taken to the temple, and you're like, oh no, is she gonna be in the thrown in the fire statue? Um, and then sort of our the two Roman spies, I guess, find out about this, that Cabiria is about to be sacrificed.
Yeah.
The two spies are Fulvio.
Fulvio Ax. What is it? Axilla. Fulvius Axilla.
C, and
Yes.
Makiste is, I think, how
I
it's
guess
said.
so. Let me text Alan on these Italian
Yeah, we
pronunciations.
should. And Makiste is like apparently a famous film character that got his own spin-off after this movie. Like many spin-off movies.
Yeah, he became a stock character in the same way that we would see someone like Pierrot be a stock character.
Yeah.
And
Unfortunately, he is played by an actor in blackface, which is not fun. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, old times were worse.
yeah,
Um, but I do think the actor does a pretty good Bartolomeo Pagano.
ooh.
We shouldn't say names without knowing how they are said.
Or we just throw caution to the wind and say names.
Sure. But he went on to play this character for years and years and years. He was sort of I guess he's sort of like a Hercules or Samson archetype. He's just a big, muscly guy who follows Fulvia around and helps him out.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
He's and yeah, they get through some kind of heroic exploits. Makiste, like he there's a lot of him just kind of like helping rescue Cabiria and like kind of carrying her out of dangerous situations and caring for her and everything. So
yeah.
it's kind of
Um,
sweet.
let's see, and the whole kind of like rescue from the sacrifice is a great, just a good action scene, like a genuinely good, tense action scene where Cabiria is saved from the jaws of death at the
Yeah,
last minute,
literally.
and then all hell breaks loose. Chaos ensues. They have to run up onto the roof or they escape through to the outside of the temple through an eye, like
Yeah,
this big eye that's part of the outside of the temple, like the big face on the front. And so then they're on the roof of the temple, and there's like guards chasing after him, and Makiste is straight up throwing guards. He's like
yeah.
picking guards up, and he throws one off the roof. He throws one into this big like uh lantern brazier thing.
That's full of fire and just
Yeah.
burns him alive. Yeah,
It's great. And so they Fulvio is captured, or sort of they're separated, and Makiste runs to the gardens and happens upon a sort of, I guess, princess would be her title.
hmm
um and is like, take this child, which she does. And then Makiste is captured and chained in the bowels of the city to grind wheat.
yeah. Very like a la Conan the Barbarian sort of situation.
Yeah, which I actually
Um,
saw that. I don't know if it's like people know this for sure, but it's speculated that's where Conan the Barbarian got it from, was this movie.
oh, interesting. I will
Um,
say also, totally unrelated, but as they're escaping off of the top of that Moloch building, it's all this like made out of giant oversized plaster things and people scampering on the top of a building amongst oversized plaster things, and it reminded me of Mondo Burger from Good Burger because that also involves people climbing up oversized fries and burgers and milkshakes on the top of a building.
Well, let's see. We never know where, like, what these reference points are gonna like lead us to. You know, like
But oh, go on.
Cabiria inspired both Conan the Barbarian and Good Burger, is what we're saying.
Here, wait. Speaking of, I've just received a pronunciation guide.
Oh,
Cabiria and Machiste.
Machiste.
Cabiria and Machiste.
Grazie, Alan. Where was I? A lot of plot in this one.
Yeah, a lot.
A lot of characters to keep track of with very long names.
Yes. I mean, thankfully, especially compared to the other Italian epics, I felt like this one focused on individual characters enough in a sort of more kind of personal way that it was able to. My big complaint with all that stuff was that because it was so grand, you never had any kind of emotional context for what was happening. And I think because of these viewpoint characters, because you want to see Cabiria get out okay, and you get a little more invested in what is happening, and it feels less like a bunch of spectacle with nothing behind it.
Yeah. We at least have some characters to follow. There are arguably too many of them sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think the main ones, you know, there are some like sort of machinations of what's happening with like the war with Rome and things that I kind of lost the plot there a little bit. But in terms of the actual emotional stakes of each scene, those were usually pretty clear.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to say about this? I will say that this also includes Archimedes' mirror death ray. Archimedes almost has like a cameo in this movie.
How can I forget about the entire sequence where Archimedes invents a death ray and uses it to like burn all of the ships in the bay? Incredible.
Yeah, it has Hannibal crossing the Alps. It has Archimedes.
That too.
It's got like a lot of just Western Civ stuff all rolled into one.
Yeah. And all of it looks really impressive.
Yeah. Very big scale, big props, filmed in a lot of the original buildings probably that these things took place in.
Maybe.
In ancient Italy.
Yeah, I remember last week I complained about in Quo Vadis, there's the bit where it's like, all the majesty of Rome, and then we cut to a room somewhere.
Yeah.
And this is quite the opposite. If this is talking about majesty, it's like, oh damn, they're not skimping on the scale or the majesty of anything.
Giant cats and statues and giant demons breathing fire, etc.
Yeah. Apparently all of the sort of like tracking and dolly shots made such an impact that they were referred to as Cabiria shots by filmmakers afterwards. Sort of like the way that I guess like the dolly zoom is called a vertigo shot.
Mm-hmm. And first person shooters are called Doom clones.
Yeah, everyone still calls them that. So I mean, this movie definitely made an impact.
Yeah.
Other than all of the blackface, obviously, my sort of one thing that I was like, I don't like this, is the ending, like the very end, because it ends with kind of Cabiria being saved, and then kind of being paired up with Fulvio as like a romantic pairing, and that was just, I don't know where that came from or why that needed to be in it. It was like he's like 30 years older than her.
Yeah.
It's just like, why this now? Because we have to have, I don't know.
I want to say that they
I didn't buy it.
They didn't make that explicit enough. I mean, I feel like that was what they were going for, but I was like, I want to think that that's not what they were going for.
And it is 100% what they were going for, and I did not care for it. But otherwise, I thoroughly enjoyed this one.
Yeah, this was a good one. I think this is about as good as I could have expected a movie like this to be.
Mm-hmm.
And the innovations in it and scale of it are really impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.